Hey there, and welcome to the Event Crushed podcast. Each week, we'll be chatting about all things wedding industry, entrepreneurship, and how to crush it in life and business. I'm so glad you're here. Now, let's dive into this week's episode. Hey there, and welcome back to the Event Crushed podcast. I have a very special episode for you today. I am bringing you an interview with Aislinn McKenna, who is a past luxury wedding photographer turned business coach for wedding professionals. She started her photography business at the age of 16 and went on to have an extremely successful business and was able to retire from her first career and step into coaching in her early 30s. She focuses on mindset and strategy in her coaching business, and I really loved chatting with Aislinn about all things weddings and business. All right, let's jump into the interview. Well, hello, Aislinn. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Becky. I know this conversation is going to be so fruitful, and I've been looking forward to it all week long, and I just know that we're going to have such a beautiful time together.
Yeah, absolutely. I am really excited for this conversation and just kind of the direction that I think it's going to go in. And I've been listening to your podcast all week in preparation for this and have just been loving it. And I'm excited for my listeners to hear just the wisdom that you have to share. So before we get into all the juicy stuff, I would love if you could just share a bit about yourself. I would love to know how you originally got into the wedding industry as a wedding photographer, and then if you could share how you ended up transitioning out of that and becoming a full-time coach for wedding business owners.
I love that. Let's go all the way back to my teenage years because that's where it started. So I was 16 years old when I started my photography business. So I was in the wedding industry for 14 years, photographing weddings, photographing families, photographing all the different things over the years. And when I very first started my business, I was in my teen years. So basically nothing fazed me. I was just like, cool, why not? And I think that that's such a lesson that I wish more people would take on in their business of this space of just well, why not? Well, let's just try it. Let's get curious. Let's play a little bit more. And I really do think that helped me a lot when I was younger and when I was first starting my career, because there was just this lack of almost the limiting beliefs just hadn't even been formed yet. So I just was just pushing through, and I was like, well, I can try this. I can try this. And so over the years, I was a wedding photographer in, I think it was 5 different cities and 3 different states, because I'd moved and traveled. You had my high school years, my college years, my post-college years. We moved a lot for different reasons. And so I had to move my wedding business over the years to multiple different cities. So I had to start over a whole bunch of times. But it was really cool because every time I would start over, it was almost like getting to reinvent myself. And I loved that so much. So over the years as a wedding photographer, I was published in places like Brides, Martha Stewart Weddings, Southern Weddings before it went out of business. I was published in Style Me Pretty, Betches, Carrots and Cake. I have all the accolades I could ever want from my wedding career. And it's so beautiful to think about all the different things that I did over the course of those 14 years, because I'm sitting here now, I'm just over the age of 30, and I've retired from my first career. And it's really beautiful to look back on the season of life that I was in for all of those different pieces of my career, and to recognize that that's what got me to where I am today. So as far as kind of my transition out of the wedding industry, I was shooting weddings for a really long time. I had gotten into kind of the more luxury zone of pricing. My last weddings were somewhere around $17K all said and done. So I definitely was hitting the upper tier. And this was back in 2020, 2021 timeframe. And during COVID, so the COVID years, during that season, I was really craving what I think all of us were craving in that moment, which was human connection. And so in the year of 2020, I did 77 free coffee dates. So I invited people to these virtual coffee dates. And of course, it makes sense now that I'm a podcaster, because I loved these free coffee dates so much. And I was like, wow, let's just start a podcast. Why not? So in 2020, I did 77 free coffee dates with different wedding vendors, and I gave them space to talk about their business. I listened to what they were like going through. I just held space for human connection. Sometimes it would be cocktail hours, sometimes it would be coffee dates. But in that moment, I really needed human connection. I needed friendship. I needed to talk to people who I couldn't be in the same room as them anymore. And so during that season, I wasn't doing it thinking anything of it more than this is just something I want right now. So during that time, I had a lot of different coffee dates that people would tell me essentially like, wow, that felt like therapy, or that felt like a, breath of fresh air, or that felt like, I just felt so seen and heard. And I recognized during that season that there might actually be something there for me. So that was kind of the start of my coaching career, was that kind of like light bulb moment of, as much as I love weddings, I also really love helping business owners feel more excited about their business. And so over 2020 to 2022-ish, I started to transition out of weddings and I started my coaching career. And here I am in 2024, and that's my full-time job, and I absolutely love it.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. I loved hearing your whole story and how, you started at 16, you said, right? To now being, you said, just over 30, and you've already like retired from your first career, and you had a very successful first career. And now I love what you said about helping business owners, be more excited about their businesses. Like that's so cool and so fulfilling. And I love how you said the limited beliefs hadn't been formed yet, which I think I definitely relate to that as well. Because when I started my business, I was a little older. I was like 24, I want to say, or no, somewhere 23, 24. But I like just jumped in, not having, the real experience or knowledge, but I just felt like I was ready. And it's crazy to think back now, because I'm like, who did I think I was? Like, why did I think I was ready? Why wasn't I'm sure there was fear when I started, but it wasn't like enough to stop me, and it's just funny to think back now, on that girl, because I'm such a different person now. And it's like, it's just funny to think back on that time of life. But yeah, I think the limiting beliefs hadn't been formed yet. So I totally relate to that. The 77 free coffee dates too. That is a lot. Like that is impressive. And I mean, that's the perfect thing to do during COVID. So I think that's fantastic. And I love how that, kind of translated into now having a podcast.
Yeah, during that season, I was personally like missing the networking events and missing like seeing my friends in person. And like, I always think about this, that like, if you are not getting invited to the party, or you're not getting invited to the table that you want to be at, make your own table. Like, it's not like somebody was like, hey, I really hope that someone will, do free coffee dates. No one said that to me. I was just thinking in that moment, and like during that season, I miss my people. I miss my people. So how can I be the one that cultivates the space where connection happens? And I think that we can take that lesson in a lot of different ways, but like really just kind of asking yourself, like in this moment right now, like what am I craving, and how can I be the one to create that for myself rather than waiting for somebody else to create it for me?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. If you're not invited to the party or the table, make your own table. Yeah. That is great. So when you were transitioning from your wedding photography business into coaching, I'm just curious, like how long did that take you? Like, were you shooting weddings for a long time while you were coaching, or like, did you just decide, okay, I'm done with weddings, I'm just moving into this? Like, how did that transition look?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that it happened a lot faster than it actually did, because of like how I would publicly like portray like what was going on for me versus what was going on behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. So 2020 was the year that I was published in Martha Stewart Weddings twice. And then the following spring, I was published in Brides. And during that season, I was like, oh, we've hit like the accolades that I have like thought about for like my entire career. Like, what now? We're charging what we want to charge. Like, we have a business that we really love, but there hit this point where like the physicality of weddings was just starting to get to me. Like, I know like you could probably appreciate this too as a wedding planner, just like how physical weddings actually are. It is a lot on your body. Mm-hmm. And so for me, like I kind of was hitting this point where I was like, okay, well, I did 77 free coffee dates. I think I might open an educational shop. So I did one of those things that a lot of wedding professionals do, and I opened up a digital product shop. And it went well. I launched that in November of 2020, and I thought, oh, this is going to be the thing that, like brings in a lot more income. And the thing is that yes, it brought in income, but you still have to market it. Like it can't just be like something that runs in the background. You either have to have like sales funnels for it, or you have to be like actually marketing it. And for me, I was like, I don't feel the human connection that I want out of this because it's digital products. I would rather be coaching people. I would rather be face to face with people. I would rather be like helping people rather than just like giving them a PDF. So it took like most of 2021 for me to like be like, maybe I don't want to do weddings anymore. And then I actually retired in 2022. So my last wedding that I like shot as the primary photographer was in July of 2022. And I like basically made the decision in like April of 2022 that I was like officially retiring. And then by the end of 2022, I was like officially like my website was gone. My like email was like down. Like I was not taking on any new inquiries at that point. And it was an interesting transition out. And then 2023 was like my first year like truly being out of the wedding industry and not primary shooting. I do, however, still second shoot for one person, 20 minutes from my house. I get paid really well, and it's only a couple a year. And the only reason I do that is because it's a very specific set of parameters, but I don't even own my equipment anymore. She just provides the equipment for me. So for me, like, yes, I still shoot, but I don't have a business in that anymore. It's just kind of like a side gig, if you will. And I probably won't do it in 2025, to be honest. So that was kind of my transition out.
Yeah. Oh, it's just so interesting to hear, like, because, everyone has a different story in this regard. And I don't have any desire to stop planning weddings anytime soon, like at all. But, I don't think I'm going to do it for the rest of my life. So I do think about what the future holds and, what that will look like someday. So it's just always encouraging to hear kind of how others navigated that. And I also think this is like the perfect segue into my first official question for you. As someone who is, new to the education side of things and kind of stepping my feet into all of this, I have heard some people say like, oh, like everybody's, getting into education these days. And, oh, I guess that's just like the next thing you do. Like, and so I was just curious because I have thoughts on this, but I'm curious just what your response is to that, I guess. Like, why do you think a lot of people, or maybe it seems like a lot of people are getting into education? Like, why do you think that is? And any thoughts that you have on that would be great.
Yeah, no, I want to hear your thoughts on this too, because there's so many different takes on this. There's so many different ways that you can kind of like respond to this. So I think one of the most important things to think about is that if you were to reflect on your career and maybe you've been in business for 5 years, maybe 10 years, maybe 15 years, if you were to reflect on your career, at some point during the past however many years you've been in business, you invested in a course, you invested in a program or a coach, or maybe it was a PDF or something. You invested in something at some point to get to where you are. If the person who had put out that course or that program or the coaching investment that you made, if they had listened to the noise of everyone's getting into coaching, you wouldn't have the education that you have to be where you are now. So should everyone dream of going into coaching or education? No, absolutely not. It is not a quick fix, but it is incredibly rewarding if you learn how to be a great coach and also recognize that starting an educational branch of your business is not a Band-Aid for a business that is broken. So if your current wedding business, whether you're a photographer, florist, planner, it doesn't really matter. If your current wedding business is something that you don't like, adding an educational branch is not going to fix that. And I think that's what happens so often is I see a lot of people who they start an educational branch when they're just kind of really not in a great space with their current business and they're not fixing or optimizing the things that they don't like about their current business. It could be that their prices are broken. It could be that their marketing isn't working and they're spinning their wheels. It could be their messaging isn't working. There's a lot of different things that you can optimize in your current business to make you like it more. But adding on an educational branch is not going to fix those things. So I think the thing to really be asking yourself is why? why am I actually interested in education? Why am I actually interested in coaching, whichever side you're looking at? What exactly do I think that it's going to get me? And is that actually something that A, I want, but B, is that actually where it's going to come from? So now I want to hear your thoughts because I am so curious.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree with everything you said. Although I don't know that I guess realized that people got into education because they were trying to like fit, like they weren't happy with their own business. So they were trying to like, I guess like add another revenue stream. That's just kind of wild to me. I mean, yeah, there definitely are people in the space that probably shouldn't be and probably got into it for the wrong reasons. But I mean, for me, my, initial thought, is that to me, it's kind of like a natural thing. Like when you kind of master something and when you feel like you've reached your goals in a certain area or you've like achieved kind of the level that you were hoping to, I think you just kind of get to the point where you're like really happy with your business. Like the opposite of what you were saying about like, your business is not doing well. And it's like, for me, it was like, I built this business that I'm really proud of. And I want to help others be able to do that exact same thing, not because I necessarily know all the answers or I have it all figured out, but because I built this from nothing. And back when I was starting 12 years ago, like there was very limited education. There were no podcasts on wedding industry stuff. There were very few conferences. There wasn't all this coaching. It was so different. And to me, it's like now being able to give back and like be that person that I would have loved to have when I was just starting. I find that very fulfilling. And I just think it's really awesome to even have that as a possibility in my life. So I don't know, to me, it's just kind of a natural progression of like, you start a business and you love it and you grow it and you build it. And then, then you kind of pass that on to the next generation. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
I love that. And I think that like that's such a beautiful headspace to be in as you're creating an educational branch of your business. What I see a lot is kind of like what I was talking about, like where people just like don't know the problems. Like they don't know what they don't know in their business. They just know that it's not feeling good to them. And so they're like, oh, if I start an educational branch, that'll be the thing that makes me feel good about my business. And so that's what it's like almost like they don't even think like, oh, my business is bad, let me add on a coaching business. They think more like, I'm just like kind of like over it. I don't know what I want to do with myself. Maybe I'll add an educational branch versus like, I feel like you're coming at it from this really beautiful place of service that like you're wanting to pass on your information to like the next generation of wedding planners, which is like it's so beautiful because like I'm sure you had mentors like that raised you up throughout like your entire career. Mm-hmm. It's like you're starting to be able to give back in that way in such a beautiful like kind of like connection point.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I wouldn't be here today without the mentors that I had in the early days. And so, yeah, just being able to give that back to others is just, I love it. So, yeah. So I know that you focus a lot on mindset in your coaching and when you're working with your clients. So are there any specific mindset issues that you see often in the wedding industry? And can you maybe share like what the most common ones are that you see, and then maybe some ways that if we're dealing with those issues, we could potentially overcome them?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I'm going to preface this by these are like very broad statements, and the like ways to overcome them are not going to be like quick fixes that happen immediately. Like it's going to take like working on these things for you in order to like overcome them. But some of the main mindset struggles that I see is the very first one is identifying as an artist versus a business owner. So a lot of people will identify as I'm an artist, and then that like gives them free reign to like not be good at email communication or not be good at client experience or not be good at like just a whole slew of things. And what I think is that like when you start to realize that every person in the industry that you look up to, they got to where they are by being a great business owner and everything else that comes along with that. They are great artists, but that is a byproduct of the continual growth and repetition, not by saying that they're a good artist. So I think it's just kind of one of those things of like, I see a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm working on being a better artist. And I'm like, work on being a better business owner. If you are a better business owner, it's going to give you the creative space to be a better creative. So that's one of the very first mindset like things that I see happen a lot. And like I see it in threads, I see it in Instagram, I see it in just like conversations amongst vendors, is that a lot of people identify as an artist, but they don't identify as a business owner, or they identify as a small business owner so that they don't have to take on the responsibilities of a larger business, essentially. So the next one that I see a lot is looking for validation outside of yourself before making a move. So a lot of people, like, if this is like such a mindset thing, is like they will wait until it's an industry trend and before they start trying something, or they'll like crowdsource their intuition with their like fellow vendor friends before they like decide to invest in something or before they decide to change something in their business. And what I would say would be like the kind of cure for this, or the thing to help you overcome this, is to cut the digital noise in your life. If you are like following every single like coach for wedding professionals out there, and like you're not just following like one or two, maybe cut that down. If you're following The Knot or Wedding Wire and like what they're saying about the industry, maybe cut that. That might not actually be helpful for you. So just kind of cutting down the noise and the input that you have going into your business, that you can make more like internal decisions and less externally validated decisions. And then I would say like one of the final like kind of big main like problems that I see is looking for reasons that you're not good enough to do the things that you want to do. And this one probably hits home for a lot of people, even if you don't know that that's what it was. But a lot of people are looking for reasons why they're not good enough to charge X, Y, and Z, or why they're not good enough to reach out to that planner that they would love to work with, or why they're not good enough to, submit something for publication. They have this fear of rejection, so they're like not even going to try. And I would say that for me, like the way that I help my clients kind of combat this inside of my signature program is we have like accountability check-ins once a week. And then we have Friday wins, where every single Friday, they have to go in and say something that they're proud of, or a small win in their business, whatever it is. And it really just kind of builds up that like self-trust and self-confidence that you need in order to like actually look at yourself and say, you know what? No, I actually am going to try this thing. Even if I get rejected, I'm going to be okay. So those are kind of like the main ones that I see. I'd be curious to see like what you see as a planner, as far as like mindset issues.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, those were so good. I took a few notes because I think I see, I mean, I definitely have seen all of those. I had this like image come to mind when you described the cutting the digital noise. Like, I think that is so huge, because I think we're just like constantly consuming, and it can be really bad for like a lot of things, like our creativity. But I saw this, I think I just saw it on Threads, and it was like kind of like a drink dispenser that has the spigot on it. And it was like all these different things pouring into it. And it was like YouTube and Instagram and all these different sources were like pouring water into it. And then nothing was coming out of the spigot. Instead, the water was just like overflowing out of the top. And the spigot was like creativity. And it was like, because then you're not able to come up with any, like actually be creative and come up with new ideas if we're just only consuming everyone else's stuff. And I just thought that was a really interesting visual picture, that what you said just reminded me of that.
I love that.
Oh, yeah. Looking for reasons why we're not good enough. Like, that's a huge one. And just like the fear of rejection, like, oh, I'm just, I have a friend who creates like the most incredible work, but she never shares it online. She doesn't submit it for publication because she like genuinely believes it's not like up to par. It's not, but I look at it and I'm like, it's incredible. You are so talented. Like, this could, be featured in huge publications. And so I think, yeah, we do that to ourselves a lot, unfortunately. And it's like, we won't even try because we just don't want to get that no. But if we don't try, then there's not even an option for the yes. And that's just kind of sad. I don't want to live in that space.
Yeah. I think it kind of goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning, that like when we were like 17 and 24, like first starting our careers, like we knew at some point we were going to have to hear a no, because in order to get to where we wanted to go, you have to hear no along the way. And I think that we can get like, really in our heads about like what the no means about us. And I think a lot of people, like, they'll have like one or two like spaces where they felt rejected, whether it was like a client call, or like maybe their like client said that they didn't like something that like they created or something like that. And we start to like make it mean something about like how we interact with the world and like what it means about us as people. But like recognizing that like Every single person that you look up to in the industry, every single like entrepreneur that you look up to has had to hear a lot of no's. And those are going to be like the things where you learn are going to come from the failures. It's going to come from the rejection. It's going to come from the no's. It's not going to come from hearing yes all the time. So recognize that if you want to go further in your career or you want to go do something, it's not going to come from you waiting for someone to say yes to you. You're going to have to hear no and recognize that you're going to be okay if you hear the no. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, definitely. I know it's a hard lesson to learn, but once you learn it, like, yeah, because I mean, I can just think of so many situations that like, you know, I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't go through a situation of hearing a no or, you know, something negative, because I learned from that and I grew from that. And if we're not willing to put ourselves in those situations in the first place, like we don't even have the opportunity to have that growth. And so, yeah, it's scary, but we have to just do it. We have to put ourselves out there and just go for it and risk it, because even if we get the no, that's okay. Like that doesn't mean it's a no forever. It's just a no for right now, and other doors will open up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. And it's something I tell my clients all the time, that like, you're going to be okay whether or not you hear a yes or a no during this client consultation call. Truly. And if you're not going to be okay, we need to talk about that, because that means you're attaching way too much to somebody else's like response. And that could be a problem.
Yeah, that's good. That is problematic. Okay, so listening to your podcast, Clarity Convos for Wedding Pros, I know sometimes you do like kind of a pep talk, and I was wondering if you would be willing to share a pep talk with my listeners here today.
Oh, I'd be honored to. Yeah. It's actually been a while since I've done a pep talk, so I had to go back and listen to some of my old ones, because I was like, ooh, it has been a while since I've done one of these. But I actually was thinking about before our podcast interview, like, okay, like what could I share? Like what would be like really motivating? Like what would feel like something that like would really activate someone? And so I had a couple ideas. And so that's where I'm going to start, is just like pep talks are either going to like hit a nerve for you, or they're going to lift you up, or they can do both, and just let it be what it's going to be. So as you're listening to this, whether you're driving or you're editing or whatever you're doing right now, I just want you to take this with a grain of salt, and just like whatever is like hitting for you, I want you to reflect on that after I'm done with my pep talk for you. So when I was thinking about this, I really wanted to kind of like focus specifically on, you need to stop blending in with everyone else and start showing up as the of course option. The vendor that people love to refer, the vendor that clients can't shut up about, they love talking about you, and you need to focus more on who you are being and less on what other people are saying that is possible for you or is not possible for you. Right now, you guys are listening way too much to the outside noise and to the outside world about what you think is possible or what you think isn't possible for you. And you need to be thinking more about who you are being on a daily basis, how you are engaging in your life, how you're engaging with your customers, how you're engaging with your business. And you need to stop downplaying your genius and why people hire you. A lot of y'all are either falsely humble or you don't believe in what you're doing. And you need to stop downplaying your genius. People hire you for a reason. What is that reason? You know that you're showing up and making the bigger moves is going to be the thing that explodes your growth, but you're not doing it. You need to believe in your offers more. You need to believe in your creativity more. You need to believe in your services more. You need to believe in your impact as a creative more. You need to believe in how you're serving your clients more. What you're doing is more than just wedding planning. It's more than just wedding photography. So you need to act like it. If you are not currently acting like it, I hope that this is like activating something in you that like, yes, I actually am going to show up a little bit more powerfully. I am going to believe a little bit more in how I'm helping people. This is not just a side hustle. It's not a side gig. It's not something that you just do for fun. It's a business. So when you're like tapped into the energy of charging more, attracting dream clients, and loving your business, you're going to notice that more people are going to start showing up. More opportunities are going to start showing up, but you have to act like it before those opportunities show up for you. No one's going to be able to do that for you. So if you're sitting here and you're listening to this and you're like, okay, that's great. Like, can somebody do this for me? No, you have to be the one. You absolutely have to be the one. If you want to be the like go-to person in your industry or in your market, or you want to be the of course option, you have to act like it. So where are you playing small? Where are you acting like what you're doing is not a big deal? Where are you acting like, oh, it's just wedding photography? Because it's not. It's got to be more than that. you have to believe in what you're doing more than that. So I hope that that is activating for you, and that like you're maybe like on a wedding, like, you know, going to a wedding this weekend, and like you're kind of like showing up a little bit more differently and like a little bit more like larger for yourself, and also the impact that you're leaving for clients. And if you can connect to that, I promise you things are going to change for you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm like fired up right now. That was so good. I love it. Yeah. So encouraging. I feel like that's what we all need to hear. Like, I think, especially, I mean, here where I am in the Pacific Northwest, we're like well into our wedding season now. You know, we're just like in the grind right now. And it's kind of easy to just lose sight of, does this have an impact? Does it really matter? Is this really, you know, making a difference in anyone's life? Like, I don't know. I think it's easy to lose sight of that when we're just like so busy focusing on the day to day of just like running our businesses. So it's always good to remind ourselves of those things. And just hearing that is so encouraging. Like, stop downplaying your genius. I love that. That's huge. Believing in your impact more. Just, yeah, believing like it's more than just wedding planning. Like, we're helping, you know, we're helping couples have the best day of their lives. Like, it wouldn't be possible without us. Like, if we're capturing the photos, like, that's a legacy that's going to live on forever. It's not just, oh, it's just wedding photography. Like, no, it's a huge deal. And I think all of us in the wedding industry, you know, whether we're a baker or a caterer or a florist, like, we all play a huge role. And it's important to remind ourselves just how, you know, how big it is and what an impact it does have.
Yeah, and I think that there's such a difference between the vendors who show up with this like energy of like, what I'm doing here matters and how I show up matters, versus the people who are like, oh man, this is my 12th wedding in a row and I'm so tired and I'm just gonna like, I just have to get through this day. Who do you think is going to get referred more? Who do you think is going to be the partner that, like, the vendor partner that you want to be around on a wedding day? You want them to be on your team on a wedding day. So if you're like currently in the slog of weddings, I just want you to like think about like, how am I showing up? Because not only does it like for your clients how you're showing up, but it's also like the people around you. Like, people want to be around the energy of like, hey, what I'm doing here matters. How I show up for my team members matters. Like, there's something incredibly magnetic about that. And so I just want to encourage all of you that like at any moment in time, like, you can decide to shift into that energy. It's not something that you have to like, oh, well, next wedding I'll do that. Or maybe like in the fall, I'll feel that way. You could decide today as you're walking into a wedding that that's how I'm going to show up for myself and show up for my team members.
Oh, 100%. That is very well said and so true. Like, I think as wedding pros on a wedding day, like, we all kind of feed off of the energy that you know what I mean? Like, if the photographer has like awesome energy and like, you know, then like I'll feed off of that. Or like if I were to be really like tired and like, oh, I don't know, like people would feed off of that. And like, that's not what I want at all. Like, I'm coming in, you know, hopefully we're all coming in with like positive energy and good attitudes and just ready, you know, to slay the day. So that it does have a huge impact, though, on not just our couples, but the vendor partners that we're working with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people forget that your vendor partners are very often the ones who are speaking your name in rooms of opportunity, not just your clients. And so like it pays to be a really good team member.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. Okay. So you mentioned earlier your signature coaching program. So I was hoping you would just share a little bit about what that is, what your offerings are, what it looks like to work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple different ways that you guys can work with me depending on where you are in business. So my signature program is called Success Accelerator Program. It's a 6-month commitment. It's both like kind of a hybrid of like the actual framework of trainings and biweekly group coaching calls and the Slack access. So it's kind of hybrid in that, yes, you are getting actual coaching from me, but you also have access to an entire framework of trainings that help you optimize your business. It helps you level up your mindset and engage with like making money in your business in a brand new way, because most people in the wedding industry just don't have a great relationship with money. So that is one of the focuses that we have inside of SAP. So that's the very first place that you can work with me. The second place is if you are further along in your career and you are in that space where you're like, hey, maybe I do want to start a coaching program, or I do want to diversify my income, or I already own multiple businesses and I want to grow the businesses that I have. That's where my mastermind comes into play. And that's really meant for the people who are already kind of like towards the like mastery level of their career. And they're like looking to like essentially build their empire, or they're looking to do things that are a little bit less one-to-one and a little bit more like one-to-many. So that's that's the other space. And then finally, the final space, this is coming out in July, which I'm so excited about. It's called the Masterclass Vault. So this is essentially some of my favorite masterclasses that I've ever done, all put into a vault where you get access to the trainings. So there's no coaching inside of the Masterclass Vault, but it is like on demand masterclasses about different topics like marketing, communication, like things that you need to build your wedding business to the next level without like having to have the coaching aspect of it. So those are kind of the big three that I have. Of course, I have private coaching, but that is for a very special unicorn person. I only take like 1 or 2 a year. But primarily my clients end up in SAP or in my mastermind. And then I have a lot of people who will be in the Masterclass Vault as well.
Awesome. I love that you kind of have something for everybody. That's wonderful. So I feel like my listeners, will have, because I think there's kind of a wide range of, brand new people and then people who've been in the industry for a while. So knowing that you have a wide variety of, options for people is amazing. If people want to learn more about what you do, where's the best place that they can find you?
Yeah, so I live and breathe on Instagram. So I think that would be the very best place to come find me. So it's Aislinn Eileen Coaching is my Instagram. So you guys can come find me on there. Whenever you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure there'll be something different that I'm selling like on my Instagram stories, but that is the primary place where the new information is coming out. And then in the month of July, I'm actually launching my website. So it'll all have a really pretty home instead of it just being kind of like all over the place, which I'm really excited about.
Yay. Yeah, that's so exciting. And congrats on that new, the Masterclass Vault that you're launching. That sounds really awesome.
I'm so excited. I've been thinking about it for a while and I was like, okay, I think this is going to be what people need from me before they get into my signature program. Like sometimes they just need like to be able to watch stuff while you're editing or to be able to watch stuff while like you're like, working on a design or whatever. And I think that there's going to be just so much value inside the vault.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I will put a link to your Instagram and your website and everything in the show description so everyone can find you. But thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you taking the time, Aislinn. It was really fun getting to chat with you.
Yeah, Becky, thank you so much for having me. This was absolutely beautiful. And I hope that whoever's listening to this, I hope that this was like really activating for you and like gave you a lot of things to think about in your business. And just remember that like you're the leader of your business. If something doesn't feel good in your business or if something feels heavy, you get to change it. You get to clean it up. It doesn't have to be a next year thing that you do. You can literally decide today, I am going to clean up this part of my business and make it feel better. So I hope that if you're listening to this, that you got some takeaways that you're like, oh, I think I'm going to go work on this thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh my gosh. I think that's like one of the best parts about being a business owner is that we do have the power to make those changes and decisions in our business. And that if something's not working, we don't have to just keep doing it. Like we have the power to say, oh, this isn't really serving me anymore. So I'm going to make these changes and I'm going to make my business work for me. It's not working for you. You can change it. And I just think it's important. It's just a good reminder for all of us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I cannot wait for this episode to come out.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks so much, Aislinn. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Aislinn. If you are looking for some help in your business, make sure to check out her Success Accelerator program as well as her new Masterclass Vault, and all of that will be linked in the show description. All right, friends, we'll see you back here next week. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Event Crushed podcast. I hope you found value in this episode, and if you did, please consider sharing it with a wedding industry friend. We also hope you'll consider leaving a rating or review for the show to help other listeners find it. This podcast is edited and produced by Ace Sound Design. If you're looking to elevate your audio experience, their info can be found in the show description. As always, thank you for listening, and please connect with us on Instagram if you haven't already. Now, get out there and crush it.